Trump to come and unveil his leadership in South Carolina. These are the people in South Carolina that will be leading his campaign for 2024 in the state. And appearing alongside Trump will be the governor of South Carolina, Henry McMaster, as well as Senator Lindsey Graham and newly elected Congressman Russell Fry. Now, this event was invite only. It's a much smaller scale event than what we're normally used to. If we could just show the crowd a little bit, it's a packed crowd here that we're looking at, and there's people on the there's people right here on the balconies. That's pretty much the only amount of people that are able to be here today. You know, usually when we cover Trump rallies, we're used to seeing thousands of people in attendance lined up outside on the sidewalks, and then the venue is usually outdoors, so it's a pretty packed environment. This one is definitely a lot different. It was an invite-only event, mainly just local leaders, people who are heavily involved in politics here in the state. So definitely a lot different than what we're used to. But one thing that we did notice when we were outside is that there are some people who did travel. We met one guy who came from Georgia. He drove 3 hours to come here with hopes of seeing former President Trump speak, although sadly he wasn't allowed in, so that trip was made in vain. However, it just shows the enthusiasm down here in these southern states for former President Trump. And, you know, this is an interesting time for Trump in general in his campaign. It comes at a time when any backlash that he may have faced over those classified documents is now kind of, he's not so much of an outlier now in light of Biden's, the new revelation of Biden having classified documents, and former Vice President Mike Pence also having classified documents. So this comes at an interesting time in regards to that, but it also comes right after the midterms where, you know, Trump saw a mixed victory as far as the candidates that he endorsed. In a lot of swing states, many of the candidates that he endorsed didn't win. However, in other states, the candidates fared well. So this is definitely an interesting political time for former President Trump. Now, South Carolina, to speak a little bit about the local politics, this is a deep red state. On the federal level, you have 2 Republican senators. 6 out of the 7 Congress members in D.C. are all Republican. Only 1 Democrat coming from South Carolina is in D.C. is elected to the House of Representatives. So definitely a deep red state, and the state has not elected a Democrat president since 1976. So the question here in South Carolina is not so much about whether or not a Republican will be elected, but it's more about which Republican will be elected. Now, so far, Trump is the only Republican candidate officially in the race for 2024, but there's rumors that prominent figures like Nikki Haley and Senator Tim Scott could also join the race. And those are very strong voices, very influential voices here in the state of South Carolina. That could impact Trump in the primaries. We did speak to a couple of local elected officials today, and they said that it's too early to endorse anyone at this point. However, others are, they say they're just waiting to see how the field looks once more Republican candidates actually make their bid for 2024. So we're going to show you what those local voters and local elected officials were telling us just moments before we came in. I'm here with Mayor Bob, who is the mayor of Clinton, South Carolina, and we're going to talk about the local situation politically here in South Carolina. What is your take on the support on the grassroots level for President Trump here in South Carolina, in your city?
It's mixed. It's mixed. You got people who love him, you got people who hate him, It's probably that way all across the country. People don't like him personally, and sometimes the personal thoughts outweigh the attribute of getting the job done. And sometimes it's kind of like I equate it to you probably heard this story before, when your plumbing is broken in your kitchen, right, and it's flooding your house, and water's going everywhere, and you call the plumber, and he comes, and he might be a little crude, and he might use a little foul language, and he might have his pants hanging off his backside, but he gets the job done, right? And do you care about those other things, or do you care about that he got the job done? So we need somebody to get the job done.
And speaking of that, so there's obviously rumors that prominent figures here in South Carolina, such as Nikki Haley or Senator Tim Scott, could run against Trump, and that could hurt him in the primary. What do you think about that?
I know Tim Scott, and I know both of them, and they're both good people. And so we just have to let the process shake out and see who's there at the end, okay? That's the whole thing, the process, and see who's, Tim Scott's a great guy, doing a great job. Nikki Haley's done a great job, so would they be my first choice? I don't know. I doubt it.
Well, I mean, you're here, so anyway.
I'm here because I want to see this go through. There's some great candidates in the Republican Party. They just can't afford to lose the next election. We can't lose the next election.
I want to ask you on the local level. You said you've served as mayor for 10 years, right? When Trump was in office, did you see any policies that he enacted that actually impacted your state, your city directly?
The policies I saw were enacted by his predecessor. I've never seen so many homeless people in our communities we have right now today, ever. Every unoccupied building has somebody living in it, and it's multiple people living in it. So it's affecting small cities and towns and big cities all across our country. The policies at the border are really having a huge effect, and I think there'll be effect for many years down the road. I don't know how you're going to fix it.
But when Trump was in office...
Trump was fixing it. He was fixing it.
In which ways did you notice?
Limiting the number of people who are coming into this country illegally. If you want to come legally and work and be a part of the system, I welcome you, okay? Because I know a lot of immigrants who've come in are really productive citizens, and their families are. So, but you got to do it legally and do it through the process as we have in effect. Right now, that's not being done. And anybody can see that. Anybody. Okay.
What is your message to our audience, this is going to be airing to many people not in South Carolina, all across the country. What is your message from South Carolina about this next 2024 election here?
We can't have another 4 years like we're having right now. It can't happen. Please, help save our country.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor Bob. We appreciate you. So just first of all, you said you're here just to kind of observe. Why are you here today?
Well, this is our state house, and the former president's coming, so it's worthwhile to come and observe and see what he has to say and see what the outlook is for 24.
And you said a lot of state-level lawmakers are kind of holding the power, not wanting to endorse anybody just yet, considering there's not many people who have come out yet.
Yeah. It's awful early, I'm interested to see what he has to say, and not so much interested in hearing about 2022 anymore. I want to see what he wants to do in the future. A lot of us are in that camp, and it's awful early. It's too early to be endorsing anybody, in my opinion. But some might, I don't know.
Yeah, and then from your take, just having been involved at state level politics, if figures like Nikki Haley and Senator Tim Scott actually come out and do announce they're running, do you think it will make it more challenging for Trump in the state, considering those are very influential voices here?
I think that would be just the natural dynamic. If you have, local guys that are running that have served the state in other capacities, governors, et cetera, senators, I think it would be natural that that would kind of muddy the waters a little bit.
Okay. And then last question for you. I know you said you're not going to endorse Trump, but I just wonder, has his policies, is there anything about Trump's policies when he was in office that impacted South Carolina particularly?
Well, I'm sure they did. We got a fentanyl problem nationwide, but I think in South Carolina we're acutely aware of it. And it was our desire that we maintain our border a little better than we're doing now. So I think Trump was a little better on that issue and a few other issues, sure.
Cool. So what got you involved with the campaign, you said, in 2020, and why are you motivated to do that again in 2024?
Yeah, with COVID, I was on furlough for a long time with my job, and I really thought President Trump was fantastic, so we just wanted to help in any way we could. I had some extra time, so I was able to do a lot of campaigning for President Trump in North Carolina. Spent a lot of days out there knocking on doors and doing everything we could. And we did win North Carolina, so we're happy about that. And I plan to be involved again in 2024.
So that seems like quite a bit of work. What personally motivates you? What policies maybe have you seen that has helped the country or helped you personally? Why are you motivated?
Yeah, I think our country, the biggest thing is the border. We've got a lot of criminals, a lot of drugs coming into this country every single day. And it's hurting a lot of innocent people in this country. And under President Trump, we had the most secure border in over 25 years. His policies were working, and I think that's most important. I also think the middle-class Americans that we were energy independent under President Trump, and our gas prices were low. the economy was strong, and we just want to get back to where we were in 2019. So.
Johnny, is that right?
Johnny.
Yeah. Is it your first time are you guys going to go in and see the former president?
We don't have tickets, but we're going to be outside.
Okay.
Hopefully he'll make some statements outside on the steps, and Johnny's looking forward to it.
Yeah, how do you feel about being here?
I mean, I'm feeling great.
Yeah, good. He loves it.
It's sunny
to be out.
It is very beautiful. And I wanted to ask you, do you think you're going to be campaigning, apparently, you said.
Yeah.
Do you think it's going to be difficult in South Carolina? We know we've heard the news of a potential run by Senator Tim Scott. We've heard a potential run by Nikki Haley. Those are very powerful voices in South Carolina. Do you think it will be difficult as you campaign if those two decide to run?
We also love Senator Tim Scott, and we love Nikki Haley as well. But I do think that it's still President Trump's time. We feel that we just need his second term, and we thought we had it in 2020. I do think that there was a lot of voting integrity issues in that 2020 election. I think because of COVID, it opened up excessive mail-in balloting and ballot harvesting and all those kind of things that went on. So hopefully we can get some of those states shored up as far as election integrity. So and I know that a lot of different state senators around the country are working on election integrity, and there's still problems. We saw it in 2022 in the midterms. We're just hoping that we have a fair election in 2024. And President Trump's support is huge. His following's everywhere throughout the state, throughout North Carolina. I think there are some legitimate contenders, but it's just not their time yet.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate you. So, Todd, I want to ask you about the feel here in the state as far as the support for President Trump. It seems he stayed the same for 2016 and 2020 as far as the voter turnout for him. What do you think about now?
Well, I think it's certainly growing. People got tired of $4 a gallon instead of $1.78. That's what it was here in South Carolina. The grocery price is everything. The fentanyl is up here in South Carolina, and the overdose deaths coming through the border. I was with the Attorney General of Montana 2 months ago. He said his deaths are up 1,100%, and he was in Montana. And he was commenting, it's just not Arizona, it's just not Texas, it's the entire country, and we're certainly seeing it here. So I think there's huge support.
So speaking of this, obviously there may be Senator Tim Scott running against Trump, maybe. There may be Nikki Haley running against Trump. If that happens here in South Carolina, those being influential voices, do you think that will hurt Trump's chances here in the state?
No, not at all. Well, it didn't hurt when Lindsey Graham ran against him, and he got 0.5% or 1%. I think people are very loyal to Donald Trump. Nikki made some disparaging comments about new leadership. I've met people that are still mad at her that took down the Confederate flag when she took down the Confederate flag because their great-great-grandfathers died in the Civil War, and they're upset because she caved to that. And that was her opinion, and I hear people, I don't know what the percentage is, but people have those concerns. So
what about the black population here in regards to Senator Tim Scott? Do you think that will help? That will help him and kind of...
I don't think so. I don't think they see him as being black like them. You hear the stuff and calling him the Uncle Toms and all that. And Trump did so much for the black community with unemployment and everything. And I've talked to a couple guys today that talked about it.
Do they recognize that here, the black community?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Lower everything. Yeah, absolutely.
And do you think that it's no secret that Trump's name is kind of divisive, whether you support him or not? Is a divisive figure. Do you think that will impact the way the voters turn out here in South Carolina, especially after what happened, like you said, on January 6th? Do you think that will have any impact?
I don't think so, because it's hurting them there in their wallets. They didn't, they just saw what a lot of the media, not all media, put out. And when they saw actually what the media was doing to him, and they saw what was going on in their real life when he became president, they didn't care because they were paying $1.78 a gallon, and they had better jobs. And I talked to a friend of mine, their 401k's down $4,000. That didn't happen with him. Everybody was making money, the little guy, the middle guy, and the big guy. So.
Any other final words about why you're here today? Or
Well, we're here to help the J6ers and the product that make honey great again. We've been blessed with it. We've been traveling the country, and people like it. And, it's not a hat or a T-shirt. It's just something different, and people like it. So, yeah.
Okay, I am here with Jim Yates, also known as Sombrero Jim. Jim, tell us about why you're here today and why you're so dressed up and fancy.
Well, I'm here to help take our country back because we got a great president that was in 2016 and should have been in 2020, but for various reasons, unknown reasons, I don't think it happened the way it should have been, the way the people voted. But anyway, we're going to go forward, and we're going to look, we're going to be here to support our President Trump. We're here for the leadership team, and they're being formed all over the United States, and this is one of the key locations because we got a great GOP here. We have a lot of people wanting to take our country back.
Are you part of the leadership team, Jim?
Well, I am in respect. I'm been a delegate for 2-3 times now already, and we are working together to form teams, like I say, to make sure that President Trump gets in there. Sure, there's a field running and everything, but you got to weed the ones out, and that's what America's all about. Yeah, that's fine for people to run and things like that, but President Trump will succeed, I'm sure.
And you're local here. Are you based here in South Carolina? Do you live here?
I'm in Lawrence, Clinton, South Carolina area.
Do you think that, so you're talking about having a large field here in the state, do you think that if prominent figures like Nikki Haley or Senator Tim Scott run, it will make it difficult for Trump to emerge from a primary here?
No, I don't. I really don't think so.
Why is that?
Well, because I think President Trump was the greatest president we ever had. He was here for the people. He was here to put people back to work, to make sure that our borders were enforced and not open like they are now. And I think with President Trump coming back in, these things will happen again, and we'll make America great again.
Now tell us about your hat, Jim. Why do you choose to wear this? It's very eye-catching.
Oh, really? Oh, okay. Well, the reason why I wear it, I thought about it before the first rally. I said, I want to make sure that we know that there's more than just the Caucasian people, the black people, the Hispanics, and everything. And I said, well, I was going to show that not only us, but the Hispanics support our country, and they hard workers and want to take our country back. And the first time I was interviewed, they asked, was it a protest? I said, no, it's not a protest. It's to show that they support President Trump. And we have people like Joshua Flores from North Carolina. He heading up a big team up there, and he may possibly be here today and everything, but we got to work together.
Do you have a lot of Hispanic people that live in your area where you live at?
I'd say not overloading, because we have a lot of industry in the upstate and everything, and not a lot of, and wherever you see them at, regardless, they are working day and night and everything. And I'd say, 5%, something like that. And so, but we're here, the Hispanics, if you're coming in across the border and everything, you need to come the right way. You don't need open borders. That's just taken away from people who work 20, 30, 40 years, 5 years, 1 year. It's taken away from your future families and things like that. And we having to pay for their, we having to pay for them to be here and everything. And whereas they've done nothing, and a lot of them don't even want to do anything. It's fine to come here, but come the proper way. That's the way it's always been. That's what America's all about, supporting our Constitution. And we have people like House of Representatives Stuart Jones, Mayor Bob McLean from Clinton, South Carolina. They great leaders, and they make great speakers and leaders on the leadership team. And I think with that being said, if we get that all over. You start out with small sections, and it works exponentially. It spreads.
What does it mean to be on the leadership team here?
What it means that we're going to do our best to take America back and put it back in the hands of the working people that always worked. I worked for 37 years at one place, and except for the years 66, 67, 68, I was in Vietnam. I was in service and everything. And we have a lot of veterans supporting President Trump and everything.
Does it mean, to be on the leadership team, does it mean that you're going to be in charge of like hosting certain events or doing door knocking, or what type of work will you all be doing?
Well, be doing all of that. I've helped with, I'm an old country boy from Lawrence. I've helped with probably, 32 campaigns since the late 90s. And out of those 32 campaigns, guess how many campaigns we won? All of them.
Really? Wow.
Yes.
You must be doing something right then, huh? Thank you for sharing, Jim. We appreciate it.
Thank you. And I think with that being said, whether it's door knocking, calling people, meeting people on the street, it doesn't matter. You've got to do something to make it work. And people like you, both of y'all working and helping support and reporting in the proper way and everything, what's been said and everything.
We're trying.
Yes.
Thank you,
Well,
Jim.
you do a great job. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you, sir.
God bless you. God bless America, and make America great again. Thank you.
So there you heard it. Those are some of the top issues from local voters and local elected officials here in the state of South Carolina. As you probably noticed, many of them say they're concerned about illegal immigration and border security. We also heard from some who say that during Trump's presidency, they felt like he did positive things for the state's economy. So that was also something that stood out, especially for the minority communities. That's what we kept hearing from the people that we spoke to earlier. And we did not see any counter protesters today outside. It was just a long line of Trump supporters trying to get into this event, as well as those, of course, selling, hats. And there was one guy we spoke to, he sells honey, actually, called Make Honey Great Again. So that was kind of cute. Trump's track record here in the state of South Carolina is pretty good. He won in 2016. He won in 2020, although in 2020 he did win by a smaller margin than he won in 2016. So that's something to keep an eye on for this next election, especially like we mentioned earlier, with those other Republicans who may come out and run against him for the primary, such as Nikki Haley or Senator Tim Scott. That could also have an influence here in the state of South Carolina. But the voting trends are interesting here. So we spoke to a state senator just a couple of moments ago who actually flipped that state Senate seat from a Democrat. And she, obviously because she's here, she's a very strong Trump supporter. So that's actually interesting if you think about it. Republicans supporting Trump very strongly. She was on billboards with former President Trump's face. That was kind of her campaign strategy, and she was using that strategy, she was able to flip a seat from a Democrat. So either it's just interesting how that voting trend kind of worked out on the local level. So we're going to allow you to listen to that interview we had with that state senator. We talked about her support for former President Trump, as well as what she thinks his policies were able to accomplish in the state of South Carolina and for America as a whole. Here's a look. So I'm here with State Senator Penry Gustafson, and we're going to speak about what a Trump run for 2024 means here in the state of South Carolina. So first I wanted to ask you, we know there's a lot of prominent names coming out of South Carolina, such as Nikki Haley, Senator Tim Scott, who may run for office, and they're influential voices here. Do you think that could possibly impact Trump in the primary here in South Carolina?
I'll tell you what. Do I need to lead in? Okay. I'll tell you what I think. I think choices are good. I think we need choices with lots of talented candidates, and we just happen to have a ton of Republican talent, including a former president. And of course, our very own Governor Nikki Haley. I love Senator Tim Scott. It is amazing we have so many good candidates out there, and we certainly need to replace our Democratic president with a Republican one.
We heard, so you're endorsing Trump, aren't you?
Well, I'll tell you what I want to do. I want to say cheers to the most relentless man who has ever wanted to make America great again, keep America great. I am just honored to be here, sincerely. I love being here and celebrating the man I voted for twice and I supported, and it's too early for endorsements. I'm not.
That's actually
doing that right now, but I do have a strong appreciation and respect for Donald Trump.
And that's actually the message that we heard from the state representative that we spoke to outside as well. He said the same thing, that it's too early to kind of announce any endorsements. You got to see how the field is looking before you make that kind of announcement. So
I'm just, I'm kind of a new legislator, elected in 2020. And I'm learning to really be more discerning, and it's not a political thing. It's just a discernment. It's part of the learning the curve, so to speak. That learning curve. But we've got to be careful about what we say, because you are a friendly media person, but there are people out there who are not friendly, and they will twist words and put words in your mouth. And I don't want to put myself in that kind of position. I'm here. I obviously like Donald Trump a lot.
For sure.
And he was on my billboards while I ran, so,
And I wanted to speak with you about that as well, because so the state senator here told me that she actually flipped a seat from a Democrat, which helped them have the supermajority here in the state house. And one of the interesting parts is that since she flipped the seat that was held by a Democrat, you would think there's a lot of Democrat voters in your area. And with that strong support you have for former President Trump, do you think that impacted you at all in that race, or?
Well, absolutely. First of all, thank you to the voters, since I have the option of saying this. The voters of District 27 from Lancaster, Chesterfield, and Kershaw counties of South Carolina. Y'all elected me. You chose me. Thank you for that. That being said, we're red. We're a Republican area, and it's definitely Trump country. If you go look at any of the numbers, overwhelmingly, we voted for Trump in our area. So I think a lot of people were thrilled to see, first of all, anyone running against the last incumbent. He had been in office for decades. His family had been in office for decades. Democrat, very powerful Democrat in our state, who actually ran against Governor Haley and lost twice, even in our district. So it came as a big surprise and honor to win that election seat. I worked really hard. And President Trump was part of my message. He was on my billboards. He was on my signs. And I've been a supporter since 2015 and 16. And my area was definitely ready for the change. And thankfully, it added to the supermajority. It made the supermajority of the Republican Party happen in the South Carolina State Senate.
And I think that says something about at least the voters in your area, particularly the fact that she flipped a seat from a Democrat and she has the strong support for Trump. Speaking of that, I wanted to get your perspective of how do you think the name Trump fares in South Carolina? Do you think the voters have been impacted by his policies on the state level? Since you've been involved in politics on the state level, has his policies when he was in the White House impacted the state?
I think that's a really good question, because a lot of people don't understand how the President of the United States, how those kind of policies filter down to you and me in this room. But when you're talking about broad, big policies, economic policies, national security, education, energy, certainly economic. Now, his corporate cuts, his tax cuts, his redefining and the Department of Veterans Affairs, that has affected South Carolina tremendously. We're very much a military-friendly state, and we have seen those positive effects. Our economy has been booming. 4 years ago, we didn't have empty shelves, and we still have them. So his policies allowed all of us to make some money, make more money, and let me tell you what else. Record. This is why I'm really. It affects everyone everywhere, but here in South Carolina, he brought record unemployment for all minorities, all of them. And when I say record, I mean ever. That is an accomplishment in itself. And so we have a lot of happy working minorities here, and I have to give some credit to the president.
Speaking of the empty shelves, so I will point out one thing. This was during the pandemic, so many areas were also dealing with supply. But the pandemic made a direct impact on the supply chain issue, which caused those empty shelves. So speaking of Trump's role in that. Of course, he was leaving office at that time. He had his own policies regarding COVID. If Trump would have ran for 4 more years, how do you think he would have handled the pandemic differently than Biden did that would have prevented or lessened the impact of the supply chain issues like you're mentioning?
I think the supply chain issue would still be there, okay? Because we had a lot of people who couldn't go places and could not work, and there were sick people and there were dying people. However, Donald Trump did Operation Warp Speed and got a vaccine made and got it out there in a phenomenal rate. They said it would take up to a year. I think it took a few months. I think he would have worked hard to make it not mandated. It would not have been mandated on a federal level. I know people personally in this state who lost their jobs because they would not take the vaccine and they work for the government, and that's not right. So how would he handle it differently? I think he would have been getting to the bottom of the emphasis of this horrible COVID-19. I think the information that's coming out now from China would have been coming out earlier. And I think we would have maybe seen more straightforward reporting and understanding of the technology and of the science of COVID-19, because let's face it, it was new to all of us in the whole world, and the information was changing. And I mean, the vaccines do not prevent getting COVID-19. And of course, we were told that by President Biden and others. So I just think he would have rolled with the punches, rolled with the technology and the science as it changed, and kept us updated. And I do not think he would have supported this element of fear, because that's what I heard a lot. And I spent a lot of time when I was running during COVID in 2020, calming people's fears and just being very straightforward in what they do, medically, talking with their doctors, making good choices for the information we had at that time.
Yeah, that's actually you made an interesting point about the information from China would have come out a lot sooner, because he did have a tough on China policy, and that might have been crucial, in that type of environment that we were in.
He was criticized for even suggesting that this came out of China, and it came out of China.
It's crazy. Anyway, any last words for our audience about, what you're expecting? What are you expecting to hear today from the former president?
First of all, last words. As a South Carolina state senator, I'm proud of my state. I love the Palmetto State. I love that he chose here to come to kick off this historic third presidential campaign. He is greeted by a lot of warmth in this room and in this state. And I wish him the best of luck. I wish him good health and everything that goes with it.
Thank you so much, State Senator. We appreciate you.
And thank you so much.
In the state of North Carolina, although many local elected officials are sort of hesitant to endorse him right now since it is so early into the 2024 presidential campaigns, and they're unsure who all is going to be in that playing field. So this is the situation that we're seeing now. Like I mentioned before, this is a much smaller scale event than we're used to. There's probably about 100 people or less that can fit in this venue right now. So they'll be lined up right behind me, and then also they'll be lined up on the balcony. But I do want to take a second and mention our sponsor, Birch Gold Group. So as you all know, right now the U.S. has hit, once again, its $31.4 trillion borrowing cap, forcing lawmakers to raise the debt limit again for the second time in 2 years. So what does that mean for you? It means that every taxpayer in America would have to pay $247,000 to climb out of this $31.4 trillion level of national debt. And with the government continuing to spend, now is the time to protect your savings, and you can do that through diversifying them through Birch Gold Group. You can transform, or you can convert your IRA or your 401k into an IRA in precious gold metals. So text Epoch to 989898 to get your free info kit on gold and talk to one of their precious metals specialists. There's no cost or obligation, and if you call now, you are eligible for up to $10,000 of precious metal. So once again, text Epoch to 989898. And we are just moments away from Trump arriving. He's going to be a little bit late because, as you all know, if you're following him very closely, you know he was just in New Hampshire right before he came here. Interestingly enough, he's not as supported in New Hampshire as he is here in South Carolina, but he still decided to make a stop there in that state, that very small state with, I believe, just 4 electoral votes. In New Hampshire here, I believe there's about 9. So that's why he's running late. He could be here probably around 5 o'clock, I would say. He was an hour late leaving New Hampshire, so we could expect to see him just moments from now. Once again, I want to kind of show you the environment that we're looking at right here. So not that many people. Many of them were invite only, and they're going to be lined up here on the balcony. Very small crowd, a lot of local leaders. So this is kind of what we're looking at. All of them eagerly waiting for former President Trump to come and unveil his leadership team for 2024. Those are the people who will be helping him during his 2024 run here in the state of South Carolina.
I can call it mini rig or something.
here with Mayor Bob, who is the mayor of Clinton, South Carolina, and we're going to talk about the local situation politically here in South Carolina. What is your take on the support on the grassroots level for President Trump here in South Carolina, in your city?
It's mixed. It's mixed. You got people who love him, you got people who hate him, you know. It's probably that way all across the country. You know, people don't like him personally, and sometimes the personal thoughts outweigh the attribute of getting the job done. And sometimes it's kind of like I equate it to you probably heard this story before, when your plumbing's broken in your kitchen, right, and it's flooding your house, and water's going everywhere, and you call the plumber, and he comes, and he might be a little crude, and he might use a little foul language, and he might have his pants hanging off his backside, but he gets the job done, right? And do you care about those other things, or do you care about that he got the job done? So we need somebody to get the job done.
You know, and speaking of that, so there's obviously rumors that prominent figures here in South Carolina, such as Nikki Haley or Senator Tim Scott, could run against Trump, and that could hurt him in the primary. What do you think about that?
I know Tim Scott, and I know both of them, and they're both good people. And so we just have to let the process shake out and see who's there at the end, okay? That's the whole thing, the process, and see who's, you know, Tim Scott's a great guy, doing a great job. Nikki Haley's done a great job. So would they be my first choice? I don't know. I doubt it.
Well, I mean, you're here, so anyway.
I'm here because I want to see this go through. There's some great candidates in the Republican Party. They just can't afford to lose the next election. We can't lose the next election.
You know, I want to ask you on the local level. You said you've served as mayor for 10 years, right? When Trump was in office, did you see any policies that he enacted that actually impacted your state, your city directly?
The policies I saw were enacted by his predecessor. You know, I've never seen so many homeless people in our community as we have right now today, ever. Every unoccupied building has somebody living in it, and it's multiple people living in it. So it's affecting small cities and towns and big cities all across our country. The policies at the border are really having a huge effect, and I think there'll be effect for many years down the road. I don't know how you're going to fix it.
But when Trump was in office,
Trump was fixing it. He was fixing it.
In which ways did you notice?
Limiting the number of people who are coming into this country illegally. If you want to come legally and work and be a part of the system, I welcome you, okay? Because I know a lot of immigrants who've come and are really productive citizens, and their families are. So, but you got to do it legally and do it through the process as we have in effect. Right now, that's not being done. And anybody can see that. Anybody. Okay.
What is your message to our audience, this is going to be airing to many people not in South Carolina, all across the country. What is your message from South Carolina about this next 2024 election here?
We can't have another 4 years like we're having right now. It can't happen. Please, help save our country.
Thank you, Mayor Bob. We appreciate you. So, just first of all, you said you're here just to kind of observe. Why are you here today?
Well, you know, this is our state house, and the former president's coming, so it's worthwhile to come and observe and see what he has to say, and see what the outlook is for 24.
And you said a lot of state-level lawmakers are kind of holding the power, not wanting to endorse anybody just yet, considering there's not many people who have come out yet.
Yeah, it's awful early, you know. I'm interested to see what he has to say, and not so much interested in hearing about 2022 anymore. I want to see what he wants to do in the future. A lot of us are in that camp, and, you know, it's awful early. It's too early to be endorsing anybody, in my opinion. But some might, you know, I don't know.
Yeah, and then from your take, just having been involved at state level politics, if figures like Nikki Haley and Senator Tim Scott actually come out and do announce they're running, do you think it will make it more challenging for Trump in the state, considering those are very influential voices here?
I think that would be just the natural dynamic. If you have, you know, local guys that are running that have served the state in other capacities, governors, et cetera, senators, I think it would be natural that that would kind of muddy the waters a little bit. But we'll see.
And then last question for you. I know you said you're not going to endorse Trump, but I just wonder, has his policies, is there anything about Trump's policies when he was in office that impacted South Carolina particularly?
Well, I'm sure they did. You know, we got a fentanyl problem nationwide, but it's I think in South Carolina we're acutely aware of it. And it was our desire that we maintain our border a little better than we're doing now. So I think Trump was a little better on that issue and a few other issues, sure.
Cool. So what got you involved with the campaign, you said, in 2020, and why are you motivated to do that again in 2024?
Yeah, I just well, with COVID, I was on furlough for a long time with my job, and I really thought President Trump was fantastic. So we just wanted to help in any way we could. I had some extra time, so I was able to do a lot of campaigning for President Trump in North Carolina. Spent a lot of days out there knocking on doors and doing everything we could. And we did win North Carolina, so we're happy about that. And I plan to be involved again in 2024.
So that seems like quite a bit of work. What personally motivates you? What policies maybe have you seen that has helped the country or helped you personally? Why are you motivated?
Yeah, I mean, I think our country, the biggest thing is the border. We've got a lot of criminals, a lot of drugs coming into this country every single day, and it's hurting a lot of innocent people in this country. And under President Trump, we had the most secure border in over 25 years. His policies were working, and I think that's most important. I also think the middle-class Americans that we were energy independent under President Trump, and our gas prices were low, the economy was strong, and we just want to get back to where we were in 2019. So.
Johnny, is that right?
Johnny.
Yeah. Is it your first time are you guys going to go in and see the former president?
We don't have tickets, but we're going to be outside. Hopefully he'll make some statements outside on the steps, and Johnny's looking forward to it.
Yeah, how do you feel about being here?
I mean, I'm feeling great.
Yeah. Good. He loves it.
It's sunny too. It is very beautiful. And I wanted to ask you, do you think you're going to be campaigning apparently, you said.
Yeah.
Do you think it's going to be difficult in South Carolina? We know we've heard the news of a potential run by Senator Tim Scott. We've heard a potential run by Nikki Haley. Those are very powerful voices in South Carolina. Do you think it will be difficult as you campaign? If those two decide to run?
We also love Senator Tim Scott, and we love Nikki Haley as well. But I do think that it's still President Trump's time. We feel that we just need his second term, and we thought we had it in 2020. I do think that there was a lot of voting integrity issues in that 2020 election. I think because of COVID, it opened up excessive mail-in balloting and, ballot harvesting and all those kind of things that went on. So hopefully we can get some of those states shored up as far as, election integrity. So, and I know that a lot of different state senators around the country are working on election integrity, and there's still problems. We saw it in 2022 in the midterms. We're just hoping that we have a fair election in 2024. And President Trump's support is huge. His following's everywhere throughout the state, throughout North Carolina. I think there are some legitimate contenders, but it's just not their time yet.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate you. So I'm here with State Senator Penry Gustafson, and we're going to speak about what a Trump run for 2024 means here in the state of South Carolina. So first I wanted to ask you, we know there's a lot of prominent names coming out of South Carolina, such as Nikki Haley, Senator Tim Scott, who may run for office, and they're influential voices here. Do you think that could possibly impact Trump in the primary here in South Carolina?
I'll tell you what. Do I need to lead in? Okay. I'll tell you what. I think choices are good. I think we need choices with lots of talented candidates, and we just happen to have a ton of Republican talent, including a former president. And of course, our very own Governor Nikki Haley. I love Senator Tim Scott. It is amazing we have so many good candidates out there, and we certainly need to replace our Democratic president with a Republican one.
You know, we heard, so you're endorsing Trump, aren't you?
Well, I'll tell you what I want to do. I want to say cheers to the most relentless man who has ever wanted to make America great again, keep America great. I am just honored to be here, sincerely. I love being here and celebrating the man I voted for twice, and I supported, and it's too early for endorsements. I'm not.
That's
Nobody's doing that right now, but I do have a strong appreciation and respect for Donald Trump.
And that's actually the message that we heard from the state representative that we spoke to outside as well. He said the same thing, that it's too early to kind of announce any endorsements. You got to see how the field is looking before you make that kind of announcement. So
I'm just, I'm kind of a new legislator, elected in 2020. And I'm learning to really be more discerning, and it's not a political thing. It's just a discernment. It's part of the learning the curve, so to speak. That learning curve. But we've got to be careful about what we say, because you are a friendly media person, but there are people out there who are not friendly, and they will twist words and put words in your mouth. And I don't want to put myself in that kind of position. I'm here. I obviously like Donald Trump a lot.
For sure.
And he was on my billboards while I ran, so,
And I wanted to speak with you about that as well, because so the state senator here told me that she actually flipped a seat from a Democrat, which helped them have the supermajority here in the state house. And one of the interesting parts is that since she flipped the seat that was held by a Democrat, you would think there's a lot of Democrat voters in your area. And with that strong support you have for former President Trump, do you think that impacted you at all in that race, or?
Well, absolutely. First of all, thank you to the voters, since I have the option of saying this. The voters of District 27 from Lancaster, Chesterfield, and Kershaw counties of South Carolina. Y'all elected me. You chose me. Thank you for that. That being said, we're red. We're a Republican area, and it's definitely Trump country. If you go look at any of the numbers, overwhelmingly we voted for Trump in our area. So I think a lot of people were thrilled to see, first of all, anyone running against the last incumbent. He had been in office for decades. His family had been in office for decades. Democrat, very powerful Democrat in our state, who actually ran against Governor Haley and lost twice, even in our district. So it came as a big surprise and honor to win that election seat. I worked really hard. And President Trump was part of my message. He was on my billboards. He was on my signs. And I've been a supporter since 2015 and 16. And my area was definitely ready for the change. And thankfully, it added to the supermajority. It made the supermajority of the Republican Party happen in the South Carolina State Senate.
And I think that says something about at least the voters in your area, particularly the fact that she flipped a seat from a Democrat and she has a strong support for Trump. Speaking of that, I wanted to get your perspective of how do you think the name Trump fares in South Carolina? Do you think the voters have been impacted by his policies on the state level? Since you've been involved in politics on the state level, has his policies when he was in the White House impacted the state?
I think that's a really good question, because a lot of people don't understand how the President of the United States, how those kind of policies filter down to you and me in this room. But when you're talking about broad, big policies, economic policies, national security, education, energy, certainly economic. Now, his corporate cuts, his tax cuts, his redefining and the Department of Veterans Affairs, that has affected South Carolina tremendously. We're very much a military-friendly state, and we have seen those positive effects. Our economy has been booming. You know, 4 years ago, we didn't have empty shelves, and we still have them. So his policies allowed all of us to make some money, make more money, and let me tell you what else. Record. This is why I'm really, it affects everyone everywhere, but here in South Carolina, he brought record unemployment for all minorities, all of them. And when I say record, I mean ever. That is an accomplishment in itself. And so we have a lot of happy working minorities here, and you know, I have to give some credit to the president.
You know, speaking of the empty shelves, so I will point out one thing. This was during the pandemic, so many areas were also dealing with supply, but the pandemic made a direct impact on the supply chain issue, which caused those empty shelves. So speaking of Trump's role in that, of course, he was leaving office at that time. He had his own policies regarding COVID. If Trump would have ran for 4 more years, how do you think he would have handled the pandemic differently than Biden did that would have prevented or lessened the impact of the supply chain issues like you're mentioning?
I think the supply chain issue would still be there, okay? Because we had a lot of people who couldn't go places and could not work, and there were sick people and there were dying people. However, Donald Trump did Operation Warp Speed and got a vaccine made and got it out there in a phenomenal rate. They said it would take up to a year. I think it took a few months. I think he would have worked hard to make it not mandated. It would not have been mandated on a federal level. I know people personally in this state who lost their jobs because they would not take the vaccine and they work for the government, and that's not right. So how would he handle it differently? I think he would have been getting to the bottom of the emphasis of this horrible COVID-19. I think the information that's coming out now from China would have been coming out earlier. And I think we would have maybe seen more straightforward reporting and understanding of the technology and of the science of COVID-19, because let's face it, it was new to all of us in the whole world, and the information was changing. And I mean, the vaccines do not prevent getting COVID-19. And of course, we were told that by President Biden and others. So I just think he would have rolled with the punches, rolled with the technology and the science as it changed, and kept us updated. And I do not think he would have supported this element of fear, because that's what I heard a lot. And I spent a lot of time when I was running during COVID in 2020, calming people's fears and just being very straightforward in what they do, medically, talking with their doctors, making good choices for the information we had at that time.
Yeah, that's actually you made an interesting point about the information from China would have come out a lot sooner, because he did have a tough on China policy, and that might have been crucial, you know, in that type of environment that we were in.
He was criticized for even suggesting that this came out of China, and it came out of China.
It's crazy. Anyway, any last words for our audience about, you know, what you're expecting? What are you expecting to hear today from the former president?
First of all, last words. As a South Carolina state senator, I'm proud of my state. I love the Palmetto State. I love that he chose here to come to kick off this historic third presidential campaign. He is greeted by a lot of warmth in this room and in this state. And I wish him the best of luck. I wish him good health and everything that goes with it.
Hey, thank you so much, State Senator. We appreciate you.
And thank you so much.
All right, so we are here with a local GOP leader in South Carolina. How are you, sir?
I'm doing great. How about yourself?
I'm doing well. Thank you for asking. So what is your position? You're the chairman of a local GOP board?
Yes, I'm a chairman of Sumter County Republican Party.
Okay, awesome. So what brought you out here today?
Well, that our former president was going to be speaking. I got an email that said he'd be here. I want to come, and I said, of course. Just to come and see what he's going to say, if there's going to be any announcements that he will make or anything like that.
Are you endorsing Trump, or do you think it's too early? Many of the state officials that we spoke to said they feel it's too early because there's not a clear layout of who all is going to be running in the race. Is that your take, or are you?
That's correct. And I was talking to a few other folks. Don't endorse anybody till we find out actually who's going to be all in the race, who throw their hats in the ring, and then do some research on everybody, find out who they are, where they stand, and get to attend as many rallies as possible to hear that individual speak and hear the words from their mouth. Not what you would read in the paper or hear from somebody else would say this is what they said. Actually hear what they said. And then do some background. How are they successful, where they're coming from? What kind of credentials do they bring to the table? And then how can we be successful moving forward?
And that's quite interesting because you would think that, which I guess is different with local elected officials, but you would think people who support Trump would be quick to jump on an endorsement, to put their endorsement behind him. But it seems here it's very, people are slow to want to make that announcement. Do you think that's because of some of the influential voices here like Nikki Haley or Senator Tim Scott, which we may see run for election in 2024?
Well, not necessarily, especially not for myself. That wouldn't be it. It's just that, because I like the president, he did some fantastic things for the country. We were energy independent. And what a lot of people don't know and has not been broadcast, and one of his first executive actions was to give HBCUs, historically black colleges and universities, $100 million a year. For as long as he was president, they never had to come back to ask for money. And of course, he was one of the most beloved presidents by the Christian community. That was a lot of times about hurt him. The other thing I loved about him, he was a businessman, not a politician. So all those positive things is what he brings to the table. That's why I say we'll wait to see what everybody else has to say, what's their back record, what they've been doing, what they're bringing to the table.
Do you think that the support from voters here in the state of South Carolina, do you think that they're solid? If they're a Republican, do you think that Trump would emerge out of a primary easily if those other people like Nikki Haley and Senator Tim Scott ran, or do you think that it would potentially hurt him?
You know, unfortunately, I can't answer that question, but I do believe that he would have an advantage because he's a known person. He has been the president of the United States. They know what he's done. And most folks understand that he's from New York. So those folks who say he's tweeting, I say he's a New Yorker. Come on. Have you ever watched, what was that, The Apprentice? But yeah, I don't know. That's kind of hard for me to say. We have a lot of people who support the president.
So from you being involved with politics in your local city, what do you think are some of the issues that voters care about or that they're eager to see solutions for that the White House could help them with? Because, of course, we know that not everything can be solved at the national level. Some things need to be solved at the local level. But what issues in your area do you think could be solved at the national level that voters are hungry for right now?
Well, first of all, to get our country back on track, to stop spending money we don't have. I could not do that when I was working and had a family. I couldn't spend more money than I earned. So to bring our country back on track, bring us back to being energy independent, and that will help everybody else down the line. I drive a hot rod. Every time I go to fill up the car, I think I have to take out a bank loan. So it helps the everyday person, the person who is working, the person who is out there trying to earn a living, to have an economy that is not inflated. Is the most important to me, the most important what my people are thinking about and talking about. We haven't seen the $7 a dozen egg price yet, but just those simple things so people can actually live that are actually working and have a country that they can be proud of and be able to actually live in and enjoy themselves. And like you said, a very important thing that politics are local. I tell people in Sumter County, we can't change the state, we can't change the country. We can change our county.
You know, when you mentioned the debt, obviously we know right now Congress is now having to raise the debt limit again for the second time in the past 2 years. So I report on Capitol Hill. I'm the congressional reporter there. Democrats' argument on this, as well as the treasurer right now, is that we've raised the debt limit with Republican presidents, with Democrat presidents. I think it was twice under former President Trump the debt limit was raised. You just said he was helpful for the economy. How do you how do you make those two messages work together? Trump helped the economy, but we still had to raise the debt. What is your reaction to that?
Well, the reaction to that is he's one person. The president has a lot of power, but he has a Congress that makes most of the decisions. He can veto some things and it can be overridden. So if we don't get our Congress doesn't get their spending under control, then the president can almost not do anything. But he can make things better for some of the things he puts into place, but his power only goes so far. That's why we are the republic that we are. Our Congress is supposed to offset that power, so we don't have a king, we have a president. And so their job now is to do what they're supposed to do and help bring that spending under control.
Did you see the economic impacts from Trump's policies at the local level when he was in office?
Yes, we did.
In what way?
We did.
In what way?
Well, the biggest one was as him and Tim Scott partnered together for the opportunity zones. The folks who took advantage of that, we saw some great results.
For the viewers who are unfamiliar, what exactly are you speaking about?
Okay, an opportunity zone is an area that has been depressed. The buildings are more or less falling apart. People don't have funds or money to rebuild. Opportunity zones gave the counties, the cities, a way to get monies to rebuild their infrastructure from the federal government. That could put people back on a steady footing, so while they're working, they can get better homes, they can have better and safer places to live.
Interesting. Okay, well, thank you for explaining that. We appreciate it.
That's all right.
And, last question I wanted to ask you, of course, is going to be about, there's a very popular slander against former President Trump, and that is the very famous argument that he is racist. You are a man of color. What is your reaction to that argument?
Well, I'm also old. I remember where President Trump backed Jesse Jackson when he ran for president. You would see pictures of Jesse Jackson, Al Sharpton, Muhammad Ali, Oprah Winfrey, all shaking hands, being friendly, smoking cigars together. Oprah Winfrey actually came out and said she wanted to be like Trump. Until he came down the elevator or escalator and ran for president as a Republican. Magically, he became racist. We know he's not. There's stories about Trump, and I don't know how many people know this, but there was a homeless woman, American of African descent, living in Trump Tower. And somebody came and told him, he said, well, we've got this woman living here. What are we going to do with her? He said nothing. He let her stay there because so she could have a place to live. So those stories don't get out. And, and the narratives that goes out there about what he says in some of the areas about white supremacists and stuff like that, they never repeat the whole speech. That's why I say it's so important for we look at the whole speech. They say, I'm not talking about those people. They're bad. That never came out.
Right, because many things could be taken out of context, which they have been.
If you
Speeches, clips.
You clip the speech and edit the speech, you can make it sound like you want to. That's why being in person is so important for anybody who can do it.
And, I think that's actually quite a dangerous talking point for our country, because if you divide people based on race, or you try to propagate that message that this man is racist, and if you support him, you're racist, and you just trying to divide people, trying to propagate that message of racism, that actually does a lot of harm, I think, morally, because then people start vying against each other. And our media specifically was founded to unify people and oppose the communist sector, the ideology, which divides people. So do you have any thoughts on how harmful that could be for a nation?
Well, it's very harmful. And as you mentioned a key word, communists. We look back as communism started, what did they do? They pitted the poor against the rich, the proletariat against the bourgeoisie. What are we doing here? We're pitting black against white. They're doing the same exact thing. They couldn't do it with the financial piece because most people now are on the same platform as far as having economic abilities. So what do they pick? They pick color of the skin. And I know that you won't mind me saying this. I hope this doesn't get cut. But truly,
right now, so.
Okay, sorry. But truly, we are all one race created by God, and he made many nations. So we all came from one race of people. We're all one race of people, And as I speak to people, I tell them, you know why we're different colors? Look at nature. Nature's got greens, yellows, oranges, purples, blues. Sunsets are fantastic. Rainbows are fantastic. So why doesn't his children reflect his likes in different colors? So that's why we are all different colors. But we are all one race.
Similar human values as well.
Similar human values. When you get down to it, we all like family. Most of us have faith. Most of us enjoy freedom. So the basics of a family to survive and support itself is what most of us believe in. So, and regardless of your skin color, or regardless of what country you come from, that's why they come to America, because we offer that. No other country in this world can you go to and be called, we can't go to France and be called a Frenchman. We can come to America and be called American.
And that's, you mentioned the immigration issue from a very positive angle. Everybody is coming here because it's a land of opportunity in a sense. A lot of the local elected officials that we spoke to were saying that immigration is a key issue here in the state of South Carolina for voters. I'm wondering why is that? This is not a border state. Of course, there's the fentanyl issue, but I'm just wondering why that's on the top of their minds, the immigration issue. Why do you think that is heavily considered here in South Carolina?
Well, when you're talking about millions of people coming across the border states cannot handle all of them. They've got to go somewhere.
They're coming here?
They're coming here. They're spreading across the United States. So that's why that issue is very important to us, because the little border states can't handle that influx of people. So they got to be shipped somewhere, and they are being shipped across the country. So that's why that is so important to us here in South Carolina, because it affects us, it affects our economy, just like any border state. We're not as bad as a border state. And you mentioned very well drugs and fentanyl. What's coming across the border affects us tremendously.
Have you seen those impacts here locally from fentanyl overdoses in your local area, or as far as people, illegal immigrants, coming here and living here? Have you seen that yet?
Well, that's a very push from our law enforcement, our Attorney General, our General Assembly. There's the fentanyl epidemic, and it's coming here to South Carolina. So that is a very huge push and a very big concern, because we know fentanyl, just a minute amount will kill you. And what you think you're getting high on, then now people are looking at you in a casket.
Well, thank you for all of your good points. We appreciate you chatting with us. Any last message for our audience about what do you expect to hear from the former president, or your thoughts?
No, I just here to meet new people and get to greet people, and looking forward to a good speech. I'm going to have to sit down because my feet are getting tired. But yes, and thank y'all for what y'all do, because it's so important to have a news media that we can count on that's going to give us the truth.
Thank you so much. We appreciate you.
Thank you.
In front of the camera? Right now?
Yes.
Great. So I would like to introduce our exclusive sponsors making today's coverage possible, Birch Gold Group. That was already started.
Okay. You tell me when she can talk.
Switching sides.
All right, so I'd like to take a moment now and introduce our exclusive sponsors making today's coverage possible, Birch Gold Group. As you all know, and as I know very well, reporting on Capitol Hill, we have maxed out once again our debt, forcing lawmakers to raise the $31.4 trillion debt limit for the second time in 2 years. So what does this mean for you? It means that every taxpayer would have to pay $247,000 in order to pay down this national debt. And as the government continues to spend, now's the time to protect your savings by diversifying into gold. And you can do that with Birch Gold Group. You can convert your IRA or your 401k into an IRA by converting them into precious metals. Text Epoch to 989898 to get your free info kit on gold and talk to one of their precious metal specialists. There's no cost or obligation, and when you contact them now, you'll be eligible for up to $10,000 in free precious metals on qualified purchases. So once again, text Epoch to the number 989898.
Come on, we can do better than that. Let's hear it. Come on. There we go. I think I got some fans upstairs. I'm not sure. 2 years ago this month, America took a left turn for the worse. Joe Biden was sworn in as President of the United States. On that day, our nation got weaker. Families became less safe. Freedom became less secure. Quite frankly, the last 2 years have been a disaster. But this past November, the American people said that they had had enough. On Election Day, we did one thing to get this country right. We fired Nancy Pelosi. And our new conservative House of Representatives is already hard at work. We voted just this past week to restrict any president's ability to sell our oil to China. We restricted his ability to sell it for political purposes. We advocated keeping 9 justices on the Supreme Court and stop court packing. We passed the Born Alive Act to protect life. And we fired 87,000 IRS agents. You know, we've had a pretty good couple weeks, but just wait until the Oversight and Judiciary Committee hearings start this week. I'm excited about that. You know, unfortunately, though, a lot of this is fruitless if we don't have somebody in the White House that believes what we believe. We need a strong leader who will work with us to restore America back to the great nation that it is. Just 2 years ago, I look at the room today, this packed room, this is incredible. And I see local leaders, I see grassroots leaders in our state and local Republican parties. I see members of the General Assembly, I see a senator, I see 3 congressmen. This is an impressive group of people. Never before in the history of the South Carolina Republican primary has a presidential candidate received this much support this early in the game. And we appreciate it because this is the testament to President Trump's legacy on our country. And we're here today to send a clear message that in 2024, we're going to tell President Biden that he is fired as President of the United States. We need a friend of South Carolina, someone who overwhelmingly had the support of our state in 2016, again in 2024 or in 2020, and will be with him in 2024. That's right. South Carolina wants Donald J. Trump back in the White House. When President Trump was in office, our economy was booming, the stock market was up, our taxes were low, our nation was safe, and we were feared by our enemies. There was no Biden inflation. Gas prices and groceries were affordable, and eggs didn't need to be smuggled across our southern border. Now drugs, criminals, and millions of people are coming to this country illegally. Fentanyl is the leading cause of death for children under 14 years of age. Americans have paid $10,000 more because of inflation, because of this administration, and our military is training soldiers with pronouns instead of weapons. All the while, a confused old man is asleep at the wheel in his Corvette driving this country off a cliff. Ladies and gentlemen, we need a leader who will put America first. Who will fight against the swamp, the fake news, and the liberal left. We need Donald Trump. Mr. President, I'm proud to be here. I'm proud to support you and your campaign because, make no mistake, South Carolina is Trump country. Ladies and gentlemen, please give a warm South Carolina welcome to the 45th and soon to be 47th President of the United States, Donald J. Trump.
Wow, thank you very much. So many friends. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. What a group. What a group. A lot of people outside. They want to be inside. Should we let them come in? I don't think so, right? Thank you all very much. And Russell, thank you. What a job you've done so quickly. It's been fantastic. Thank you. We love you too, and I'm proud to accept your endorsement, and I'm thrilled to be back in the great state of South Carolina. We won it twice by record numbers, and it's just a real honor. It's an incredible place. As the famous saying goes, South Carolina picks presidents. You've heard that a little bit before, right? In 2016, this state did exactly that, giving us 44 out of 46 counties, and I can't wait because the answer is we're going to get 46 this time. I think we're going to get all 46. I have a feeling. We're here today to announce our campaign's incredible South Carolina leadership team headed by Governor McMaster. What a man. What a man. Thank you very much. And Peggy, thank you. We've been friends for almost from the minute we met. He wanted to endorse me, and I wanted to take his endorsement. I didn't have the endorsement from the person that for a period of time was a little bit above him, And that worked out very well for me, didn't it, huh? But, Governor, you've done an incredible job, and congratulations on your recent very big record victory. Thank you very much. And Peggy. And a friend of mine for a long time. We don't always agree, but that's okay, too. But he's a great guy, a great politician, actually, and a terrific person who loves the estate, Senator Lindsey Graham. Thank you, Lindsey. Thank you. And many others we're going to introduce you in a little while. I just want to say to so many patriots with us this afternoon, including South Carolina, First Lady Peggy McMaster. Thank you, Peggy. What you had to put up with during these campaigns. What you had to put up with, and you did. You're professional and a great, great person. Thank you very much, Peggy. We appreciate it. South Carolina Senate President Thomas Alexander. Thank you very much. Thanks, Thomas. Appreciate it. House Speaker Merle Smith. Thank you, Merle. This campaign will be about the future. This campaign will be about issues. Joe Biden has put America on the fast track to ruin and destruction, and we will ensure that he does not receive 4 more years. We had a tremendous period of time. We had a tremendous thing happening just 2.5 years ago. I used to say 4 years ago, then 3 years ago, then 2 years, and now it's all of a sudden it's catching. So 2.5 years, you just take a look at what we did with this country was greatest economy ever, largest tax cuts in the history of our country, largest regulation cuts in the history of our country, Space Force, right to try. We did so many things. Strongest border, by the way. How important is that? Strongest border in history. We built hundreds and hundreds of miles of wall. We got Mexico to give us 28,000 soldiers free of charge, no cost. And we had the greatest border in history and among the lowest years ever recorded for drugs, and now the drugs are literally 10 times more than they were just 2 years ago. What's happening to our country? The 2024 election is our one shot to save our country, and we need a leader who is ready to do that on day one. We need a fighter who can stand up to the left, who can stand up to the swamp, stand up to the media, stand up to the deep state. Am I allowed to say stand up to the rhinos, too? I think we can say that. I think we can say that. Stand up to the globalists and China and stand up for America, and that's what we do. We stand up for America, and that's why we had polls today come out, the best polls I think I've ever had, actually. And people are seeing, and they're liking us, but they're also not liking what's taking place in our country. To change the whole system, you need a president who can take on the whole system, and a president that can win. And we did great. Last time, we got 12 million more votes than we did the time before. Somebody interviewed me recently. What was the difference between 2020 and 2016? I said, the difference is we did much better in 2020. We did. Got many millions of more votes. But we got to be careful on election day, or as they call it now, election period, because these election days have gone into a long time. Another crazy thing that's happened. There's only one president who has ever challenged the entire establishment in Washington. And with your vote next year, we will do it again, and I will do it again. This will not be my campaign. This is going to be our campaign. I just left New Hampshire, and the relationship we have with that group of incredible patriots is unbelievable. Thousands and thousands of people coming from just a plane to the site, waving American flags, so proud of our country and so discouraged by what's happened. Together we will complete the unfinished business of making America great again. You know, when they hit MAGA, oh, MAGA, 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 that means make America great again. We're trying to explain that to a couple of Democrats. They don't quite get it. Just as we did 2 years ago, we're going to stop cold, the invasion on our border. That's an invasion, our southern border. We went from the best to, I think, the worst in the world, Henry. I think it's the worst ever, because no third world country would allow that to happen. They'd be there with sticks and stones if they had to be. But nothing like that's happened. This is an invasion that nobody's ever seen anything like it. And I think the real number could be 15 million people, not 4 or 5 million people. They have no idea what the number is. And they're coming from prisons, and they're coming from mental institutions, and they're coming from a lot of bad places that it's going to cause us a lot of problems, and we have to get that straightened out, and we have to get it straightened out fast, and we have to remove a lot of people very, very fast. because we can't have what they're sending. They're sending people that are killers, murderers. They're sending rapists, and they're sending, frankly, terrorists, or terrorists are coming on their own, and we can't allow this to happen. So the illegal border crossers are going to be sent straight back home, those bad ones especially, and they're going to go fast. You know, when we were doing this 2.5 years ago, we sent thousands of, you could call it MS-13, you could call it some of the gangs, the gang from hell. These are not nice people. And we sent them back home by the thousands, and they didn't want to take them. They said, no, we're not. And the Obama administration couldn't get them back. They said, so we can't get them back. They won't accept them. I said, how much money do we pay them? So we pay them $750 million a year. Tell them we're not paying them anything anymore. I got a call the next morning from the 3 presidents of those 3 particular countries. Sir, there must be a misunderstanding. We'd love to have them back. We'd love to have them back. You were there. You were there. They would love to have them back. We'll take all the MS-13 you have, but please keep paying. So we sent them back, but we still didn't give them the money. But now they made up for it because they give far more than what we were doing, Henry. We're going to end the free reign of violent criminals in Democrat-run cities and keep dangerous repeat offenders locked up in jail where they belong. We're going to stop the left-wing radical racists and perverts who are trying to indoctrinate our youth. And we're going to get their Marxist hands off of our children. We're going to defeat the cult of gender ideology and reaffirm that God created 2 genders called men and women. We're not going to allow men to play in women's sports. And by so doing, you know what happens. We're going to save the dignity of women, and we're going to save women's sports itself. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. We're going to bust up the censorship regime and bring back free speech again. We're going to find the deep state actors who have burrowed into government, fire them, and escort them from federal buildings, and it'll go very quickly. We're going to stop the appalling weaponization of our justice system. There's never been a justice system like this. It's all investigation, investigation. I've been going through it for 7 years. Oh, 7 years. We want his taxes. They get the taxes. That's the end of that. Nothing. They were very good. They said, he's very wealthy, but he didn't pay a lot of tax. But you know what we did? We created tremendous jobs because that incentivized us to pay and create tremendous amounts of jobs. And look, we have a country, it's all about incentive. You have to incentivize people, and they're taking the incentives away. We have to be very careful, but we have a weaponized justice system like this country has never seen before. The FBI went to Twitter, and they said, the laptop is Russian misinformation. Think of it, Russian misinformation. And they said, just don't do anything, don't say anything. This is just before the election. Then the election comes and goes, and they said, well, I guess we got that one wrong, right? They all got it wrong. It's a disgrace. Just that alone was such massive cheating. The pollsters say it made a difference of 17 points. We didn't need 17 points. We didn't need almost anything. We actually needed nothing. And we're going to restore election integrity. People have to believe in our elections. They have to believe in elections. And they have to believe in borders. We need borders, and we need fair elections and free elections. And if you don't have those 2 things, you don't have a country. Most importantly, we're going to reverse every single crisis, calamity, and disaster that Joe Biden has created and bring safety, prosperity, and prestige back to America. And I will say, we're going to put America first, as I did just 2.5 years ago. America was first. And there's never been a period of time like it. Every day for the United States, though, is April Fool's Day. This just occurred to me yesterday. Because I see what's happening, I say, what's going on? What's happening? What's wrong? It's like April Fools, right? We have open borders when they should be closed. April Fool's Day, right? Who would want open borders with everybody just pouring in? We have prisoners and people from mental institutions and terrorists being dumped into our country when they should not be accepted. April Fools, right? We have no voter ID when everyone wants it. Even the Democrats, they voted, 88% wanted The ones that don't want it are the leaders because they want to cheat in elections. It's very simple. There's only one reason that you cannot want voter ID. You know, when they had their Democrat National Convention, I saw some of these guys. They had placards. They weren't just little pictures. These were placards. They were bigger than the chest itself, except in maybe a couple of cases. And these things were monster, and it had the name, the picture, everything about the person. But for voting, they don't want you to have voter ID. We have a woke military that can't fight or win, as proven in Afghanistan. The way they were taken out was such a disgrace. And the people in the military are so great, but the leadership at top is just a disgrace. That should have never, ever happened. And we had it way down in Afghanistan. Everyone up here knows about it, and we were doing great. They respected us. Abdul, the head of the Taliban, I called him. And I said, Abdul, you're killing a lot of our people. Don't do it, Abdul. He was killing them, shooting them in the Obama administration. People, I got criticized for that call. I said, Abdul, don't do it, Abdul. Yes, Your Excellency, I understand. I said, if you do it, we are going to hit you harder than anybody has ever been hit in the history of our country. And that's very hard because we do have a great military. A lot of people don't even realize it because of the way we run it. But we have great people. We have great generals, not the television generals. But I said, Abdul, don't do it. He said, but why do you send me a picture of my home? Why do you send me a picture of my house? Please tell me. I say, Abdul, that you're going to have to figure out for yourself. It's a lovely house. And for 18 months, we had nobody, you know that, Lindsay, we had nobody killed or shot, not one soldier. In fact, Biden even making a speech during that period, he said, well, say what you want, for 18 months, nobody was killed. No soldier, not one, not injured, not shot at in Afghanistan. And then they start screaming at him, don't say that. You're not supposed to say that because that's good for the Republicans, but that's true. We didn't lose one soldier in 18 months. We didn't have one soldier shot at in 18 months. And then they had the catastrophe of that pullout, that horrible pullout. The way they did it was so embarrassing to I believe it was the lowest day in the history of our country. I really believe that. And I think that's one of the things that started with Russia. Russia looked at that. They saw that incompetence, and they said, wow, this is a great time to go in. And by the way, that would have never happened. We should have a military that's conceived in fighting and winning, not conceived in woke. And that's what we want. We want a military that wants to win. We have proposed mandatory electric stoves. Think of that. And electric cars. They want mandatory stoves. They want mandatory electric cars. The cars go for like two hours. What are you going to do? Everyone's going to be sitting on the highway. We're all going to be looking for a little plug-in. Does anybody have a plug-in? My car just stopped. I've been driving for an hour and 51 minutes. It's ridiculous. And people that are cooks, I'm not much of a cook, but the cooks are saying gas is better. So use whatever you want, but have alternatives. If you want an electric car, if you want an electric stove or a range. Well, it's crazy what they're doing. It's crazy. We have people in the midst of the greatest crime wave in the history that wanted to fund our police. This is, again, April Fools. This is April Fools. Who would think? We have the greatest crime wave right now in the history of our country. Crime is up 78% in cities. Nobody's ever seen it like this. And they wanted to fund the police. And that's never gone away. You know, they tried to say, well, we're just sort of kidding. We're not really. They wanted to fund our police. It's not even believable. We have men being encouraged to compete against women. And that was brought up before, but now I bring it up as April Fools. Who ever thought of a thing like this? We have men who want to compete in women's sports. We have Antifa and BLM who hate our country and burn down our cities, and they're totally protected by law enforcement, and yet they put American patriots in jail. What's going on there? That's all April 1st, April 1st, April Fool's Day. We're begging foreign nations for oil when we have more oil than they have. They think we're crazy. They think we're totally stone cold crazy. I speak to these people. They say, you're begging us for oil. You got more oil than we'll ever have. I call it liquid gold. It's right under our feet. And we decide to stop drilling oil right at its all-time high. Now, you have friends of mine here, businessmen, great business people. So it hits a record price, and they say, let's stop drilling. It's supposed to be the opposite, April Fools, right? April Fools. It's the opposite. When it hits a record price, let's drill. Let's lower taxes. Let's pay off debt. We would have been not only energy, we would have had energy for ourselves, but we were going to have so much extra energy, double and triple what we would have needed. We would have paid off our debt. We would have made so much money. We would have taken care of Europe. They would have paid us a fortune, which is much less than they're paying right now. Everybody would have been happy. But it's a shame when you see it. But that's April Fool's. Think of it. We stop drilling when the oil prices hit the highest they've ever had. It's supposed to be the opposite. We sell China millions of barrels when we can't get oil for ourselves. So we can't get the oil. We don't know what to do. We're looking for it. They call up the governor. Governor, you're a smart guy. Please help us get some oil. He says, I'm sorry, I can't do that. It's under our ground, but they're restricting us from taking it out, right? Even your pipelines and things. They don't want pipelines. They don't want anything. An all-time high is supposed to be the opposite. We demand windmills be built on our oceans, our prairies, our mountains, and our plains, only to realize that they're killing all our eagles and our birds. If you kill a bald eagle, they put you in jail for 5 years. But the windmills knock out thousands of them. Nothing happens. And it's the most expensive and least reliable form of energy on the planet. And the wind turbines are all made in China. Some are made in Germany, but most of them are made in China. Think of it. But he's protecting your shores. I can tell you, these people, your shores are being protected. They're not letting that one happen. I don't think the people on those beautiful beaches are going to be too happy with that. They're not letting that happen. I'm not letting it happen either. We have a president whose son's laptop from hell gets taken over and exposes massive corruption like nobody's seen before. And then the FBI goes and convinces the media that it's all nonsense. Don't believe it. Don't believe it. All disinformation. And they say, don't worry about that. Let's go after Trump. Trump. Let's get Trump. I sold something in New Hampshire. I said, the son goes to the father. He says, Dad, they got the craziest guy. He's running this store to fix laptops. And I gave him my laptop. And he's really gone wild, Dad. He's saying bad things about me, really bad. He's saying bad stuff, but what's he saying, son? Tell me, what's he saying? What do they say about me? Well, it's exposed every single crime that you've ever committed, Dad. Then I say, at some point, doesn't Biden have to say this son thing is not working out well? I mean, if you guys are great politicians. At some point, don't you sort of say, like, this whole deal with the son, with Hunter, it's not working out great. Not working out great. We have an FBI and a Justice Department that raids a very secure Mar-a-Lago in Florida, placed under lock and key with additional locks added at their request. But then they want nothing to do with Biden's garage, where classified documents are strewn all over a wet floor. Anybody know much about garages? Those floors get very damp and wet. So you can just imagine. And then it turned out today, they just announced that house was used as Hunter Biden's office to deal with foreign countries. Can you believe it? Oh, you didn't hear that? They got a bigger charge than I thought. Most people, they're so used to this corruption, there's not much of a charge. You go, yes, 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 every day in America has become April Fool's Day. This is what it feels like, because I could do this all day long. We could say things. It's just the opposite. They do just the opposite of common sense. People think of Henry as a conservative, and he's conservative, but he's basically a man of common sense. I think we all are. We're men of common sense and women of common sense, because this is really common sense. It's not about party. They're doing things that destroy our country, that are so obvious. 2 years ago, we had that great energy independence, and it was surrendered for no reason. South Carolina families are paying over 50% more for gasoline than they were when I left office, and it's actually much higher than that. We were at $1.87 a gallon, and now think of it. Now we're at $4, $5. California's still at $7, but it's going up. They use the National Reserve. I filled up the National Reserves. I did that because we had so much. I made one miscalculation. I got them so incentivized. They were producing so much gasoline they were going to all go out of business, and the prices were going down. Remember when it was you could get a barrel of oil for nothing, and they'd give you $37, but you had to take it away. So it was no good for the Wall Street guys because they're like carrying barrels of oil. But we had a period of time, but we were producing it like never before. And we created something that nobody's ever seen. We would have been at a level that nobody's ever seen before. But just as I did before, I will unleash America's vast energy resources. Those guys can start up quickly. It will also, by the way, knock the hell out of inflation. You know, inflation was caused by energy. Energy is very, very big, very powerful, very all-invasive. This is a big thing, energy. And when you're a chef and you're cooking, or when you have a store and you're doing something, or when you're sending trucks around to deliver things, or whatever you're doing, it's so much energy, the cost of the energy. And that cost was up 50, 60, 70%, 80%. It was going up like crazy. And don't forget, it's artificially known. Now it's starting to inch up again very rapidly, actually, because he took these strategic national reserves that I built up, and he took everything out. And now it's at the lowest level. I just read that it has been in 40 years, 42 years. So this is crazy. That's supposed to be used for war, for our protection. It's not supposed to be used to get gasoline prices down for an election, which is what they did. Well, thank you. I love you too. But we handed Biden a great economy, the fastest economic recovery ever recorded. It was the fastest ever recorded. But now families are being crushed with real wages down 21 months in a row. 21 months in a row. As president, it will be my personal mission to put a secure middle-class lifestyle within the reach of every single South Carolina family, and we'll do it easily. We're going to beat inflation rapidly. Rapidly. You know, the one thing is it's not as easy as it would have been because it was what caused it was energy. Now everything is causing inflation, Henry, everything. But to beat inflation, we will stop the government spending insanity. $1.7 trillion just approved, and we'll rebuild the greatest economy in the history of the world. And I did it before, and I'll do it again, and it won't even be difficult. It's not even going to be difficult. And we will be respected, because we were respected as a country. You know, they did a poll that I wasn't as popular in Germany as Obama. Of course I wasn't, because I mean, if anybody that wins those polls is not doing a good job for the United States. And we both got big crowds, but they wanted to see who's more popular. And the German people, great people, they said, this guy has really beaten us up. No, we make them pay because they took advantage of us on trade, and so does every country. There's not a country that didn't, but we renegotiated USMCA, we renegotiated all of our trade deals, and making a fortune. And the greatest deal I made, I can't even talk about it. It's the deal we made with China. The farmers took in $50 billion worth of purchases where they were taking in nothing. And I got $28 billion from the Chinese to give to our farmers because they took advantage of our farmers for years. And I got them to pay $28 billion directly to our farmers. And nobody believed that was possible. And on the border, I really like the president of Mexico, happens to be a socialist, you know. We've missed socialism because our Democrat Party and others, they never stopped. You know, the train never stopped. It's supposed to stop at socialism. It just passed. So we're down to Marxism and communism, okay? It never stopped. But I said to him, President, we have to have 28,000 soldiers guarding our border. He said, we can't do that. I said, you have to do that. And I said, 28,000 soldiers. And we also have to stay in Mexico. Everybody has to stay in Mexico. I can't do that. You got to do that. Then he sent a representative. He laughed at me when I said it. He said, no, we can't do that. We won't do that. I said, you have to do it. And if you don't do it, we're going to charge you a 25% tax on every single product you sell to the United States. And he said, could I get back to you in 5 minutes? I'd like to make one call. I think that might have been to the president. And he made the call, and he said, it would be our honor to give you 28,000 free soldiers. It would be our great, great honor to allow you to have stay in Mexico for millions of people. Millions and millions of people. You remember that one. Unlike Biden, who's wasting hundreds of billions of dollars on the Green New Deal, I will send South Carolina the world-class infrastructure that you truly need. Just as I ensured that Charleston was the deepest water port on the East Coast. We took care of it. That was us, right? We took care of it. We got the best, the deepest. You know, we had a sign up there. It said, dig we must. Forget about everything. Dig we must. They're saying, oh, no, there was a snail there. I said, that's all right. We'll work that out. But you have the deepest port by far on the East Coast. And that was a big thing. I assume that had a big, that's great, right? Good job, you did too. By phasing in tariffs and restrictions, we will phase out imports of all essential goods from China. And we will bring those jobs and factories back to South Carolina and our other great states. And I will force the Chinese to sell any holdings in the United States that put our national security at risk. You have to do that. I took in hundreds and hundreds of billions of dollars in taxes and tariffs from China, brought in businesses and brought them back from China like nobody's ever seen before. It's never been done. No other president has ever done anything like it. No other president has ever taken in 10 cents from China. It was always, oh, they're a developing nation. They say they're a developing nation, so on trade deals and all of this, they just rip us off. Nobody's ever ripped us off. But other countries rip us off also, but nobody's ever ripped us off like China. When I got in $507 billion, with a B, billion, in deficits with China. Think of it. Not even sustainable. But this is why we have $32 trillion in debt. When you think about it, much of it's owed to China, which is interesting. We'll have to work that out. I can see a nice swap there. You know, you've screwed us for about 30 years. Let's negotiate that debt. Let's renegotiate the debt. No, it's ridiculous. We owe them trillions of dollars, and they've taken advantage of us. I don't think that's good. Under Biden, fentanyl, heroin, meth, and other lethal drugs are pouring across our wide-open border, tearing families and communities apart. Drug overdose deaths are up 13% in South Carolina last year, and the reason is the drugs are just pouring in at levels 10 times what they were 2.5 years ago. Who can believe that? 10. This isn't 100%. This is 10 times. The drug cartels are waging war in America, and it's time for America to wage war right now on the drug cartels. So we're going to smash their trafficking networks, and just as we destroyed the ISIS caliphate, we achieved the most secure border in U.S. history, and despite 2.5 years of litigation from the Democrats and even some Republicans, I built hundreds of miles of wall. We got it built. We were building additional wall, even more than we promised. And then we had that ridiculous result in the election, and they immediately stopped. And that's when I said, Henry, they really want people to come into the country, because we had the wall sitting there. All it had to be is erected. 3 weeks. And all of those additional areas that I didn't even think we would be able to do, they would have been done. And they not only didn't do them, they took all of that expensive material into areas where Texas and Arizona can't use them. It's unbelievable. They wouldn't even let them use them. So as we restore every border security policy of the Trump presidency, I will also demand that Congress impose criminal penalties on any future administration that erases America's borders, as Joe Biden's has done. They've erased our borders. Through weakness and incompetence, Joe Biden has brought us to the brink of World War III. We're at the brink of World War III, just in case anybody doesn't know it. As president, I will bring back peace through strength. Peace through strength would have never happened. If I was president, there would not have been a war with Russia in Ukraine. Zero chance, and Lindsey would be happy with that. That's better than any alternative. Wouldn't have happened. And I will say this, even now, despite tremendous loss of lives and destruction of much of that country, I would have a peace deal negotiated within 24 hours. You could make a peace deal. You could make a deal for both right now, 24 hours. That deal could be done. That deal is waiting to be done, but there's nobody to do it. To protect Americans from the threat of hypersonic missiles and nuclear weapons, I will build state-of-the-art, next-generation missile defense shields. And just as I rebuilt our military, we totally rebuilt our military. Unfortunately, we gave $85 billion of it to the Taliban. How was that? Was that a good deal? We took the military out first, and we left Bagram. How about leaving Bagram? I think, the biggest Air Force base in the world. We left Bagram. And you know who's occupying Bagram right now? China. And I didn't care about Bagram from Afghanistan. It's 1 hour away from where China makes its nuclear weapons. And we left. We gave it to them. We should have never left that. You agree with that? You agree with that? Everybody who's intelligent agrees. We should have kept it. We left. By the dark of night, we left the lights on, and we left the dogs behind, you know? The dog lovers are saying, what happened to the dogs? We had a lot of dogs. We left the dogs behind. They don't like to say that, but that's what happened. But we left. And I don't think the Taliban's too good with dogs, right? I don't think they have that loving feeling for dogs. But I'll build the shield, and the workers and the service members of your state will be at the heart of that action. You'll be building it, and you'll be manufacturing it, and you'll be doing a lot, because a lot gets done in your state, and a lot gets done in your state because of me and because of these gentlemen coming to me and say, can we do it in South Carolina? And I'd say yes every time, right, Henry? I'd say yes every time. We will get critical race theory and other left-wing lunacy out of our military, and we will get it out of our classrooms, and we'll get it out fast. And, you know, we had it out. But one of the first things when he signed all of those documents, those wonderful documents, I wonder if any of those documents are on the garage floor in his house. It's a document. But when he signed all of that stuff, we will get it out. And we had it out, and our military was clean. We fired a lot of people that taught it. They were highly paid people, too. These were people making $300,000 and $400,000 a year. They were teaching this nonsense. So we want to teach people how to win wars. That's what we want. As I announced this week, I will cut federal funding for any school pushing far-left sexual or political content on our children. And I'll create massive incentives for states and school districts to adopt crucial reforms to protect parents' rights. Can you believe we're even talking about this? Henry, we're talking about parents' rights. We're saying we're going to protect parents' rights. 10 years ago, who would even say that? Parents' rights. Yeah, we're going to protect parents' rights. Who would think that would even have to say it? Today, it's like a big political statement. We will protect parents' rights. We'll bring them back. That includes a direct election of public school principals by the parents. If any principal is not getting the job done, the parent should have the right and be able to vote or to fire them and to select someone else that will do the job properly. So these are just a few of the big ideas to restore a great America that I will be talking about, and the big thing is the polls. We're leading everybody by so much. Remember in 2016, I used to go around bragging about the polls, only if they were good. If they were bad, I wouldn't actually talk about it, but they were mostly good. But I'd go around and I'd say, you know, this poll just came out, McLaughlin just came out, and I'm leading by 20, and I'm leading by 10, and I'd go, and people drove the fake news media crazy. You got a lot of fake news out there, by the way. That's a lot of fakers. That's a lot of people. That's a lot of people, but they must be here for you. I think they're here for you because you're doing such a good job. But we do have a lot. But, you know, what we're doing is so important because we're going to save our country. If we don't save our country is very fragile, very fragile. It's all very fragile. Everything is. We've got to save our country. And I want to introduce the amazing South Carolina leadership team that will help us win the chance to put this vision in action. There could be no better team, and these are friends of mine, and they're great politicians. And by the way, we have some others that called me today who couldn't be here. They're away. They're all over the place, but they also want to endorse, and they'll be announcing it very shortly. But we have some great people, very important South Carolina politicians that are going to be additionally endorsing us very quickly. And you know about that. We got about 4 of those calls today. They were like emergency calls. It's an emergency that I speak to the president. But it's first in the South. It's primary. We're going to keep it that way. First in the South. It's a very important state. First in the South. And there were people wanting to move it. And I said, we're not moving South Carolina. No, we're not moving it. First in the South, and you'll always be. I'm proud to announce that we have your amazing governor, Henry McMaster, your senior U.S. Senator, Lindsey Graham, great friends of mine, your lieutenant governor, Pamela Yvette. Pamela, where's Pamela? Pamela? Oh, okay. Hi, Pamela. Thanks. Your state treasurer, Curtis Loftus, and A friend of mine, oh, that voice was so beautiful as he called it out in Congress. Congressman Joe Wilson, I thought it was brilliant. See, that was done from the heart. That was done from the heart. That was, I don't know if you know it or not, you took a little heat at the time. People love you for that because it showed honesty, dedication, and love of your country, right? And say hello to your son, too. He's doing a great job. And a young, wonderful congressman who came into it early and somewhat unexpectedly, right? And boy, did you turn out to be a professional. You won by the largest margin in history until Cheney, I have to be honest. She lost by a number that was even bigger than your opponent lost by. Your opponent lost by 26 points. She lost by 40. So you're going to have to go back to work on your next opponent. But you're second biggest all time. Russell Fry. Thank you, Russell. And another one who's been so fantastic, Congressman William Timmons. He has been so great. Thank you, William. Thank you very much. And a friend of mine, somebody that could, I think, run for almost any office and win lieutenant governor, former Andre Bauer. I think he could win for pretty much anyone. A man who did a fantastic job, who was a real U.S. attorney, Peter McCoy. Peter, great job. And another friend of mine, you know, I sent him to a country that makes the finest desserts in the world. I shouldn't have done that. But he did okay. He did okay. You're looking very thin, actually. Ed McMullen, he's a great guy. Ambassador. And there's also an incredible group of state legislative leaders here who will be supporting us in a very big way, and we're going to be announcing it over the next couple of weeks. We have tremendous support. I think we have really tremendous support all over the country. This is the first time I've done this. We're early. You know, when I announced a couple of months ago, the fake news said, "Why isn't he campaigning? There must be something wrong." I said, it's 2 years before the election. Give me a break. But we have huge rallies planned, bigger than ever before. The rallies are actually bigger than they've ever been because there's a spirit like we've never seen before. And it's been, I think, unequaled ever in the history of our country. And it's more spirit now than we had at any time. And that includes 2020 and even 2016. So I'd like to invite Governor McMaster, who's so incredible, to say a few words, followed by Senator Graham, Lieutenant Governor Evans, Representatives Wilson, Fry, Timmons, Ambassador McMullen. And based on that list, please go quickly. Other than Henry, I don't know. Henry and Lindsay. But why don't you start it off? Thank you, Henry, very much. Please.
Thank you. Thank you, President Trump.
Thank you.
As you have noticed, this crowd loves you. People all over the state. And that's because we believe in common sense. We believe in the Declaration of Independence. We believe in the Constitution. We believe in the Bible. And we believe in you. Real quick, y'all. Want to welcome everybody here. And it occurred to me as the president was talking and I was thinking about what was happening, is we know that sometimes the Lord moves in mysterious ways, might go one way to come back another later. Well, here we are. When Donald Trump was president, America was soaring, records everywhere, more strength, more respect. Our enemies were petrified, our friends were comforted. And then we had an election and everything changed. But since then, the people have clearly seen the damage that can be done by an administration and leaders who do not believe in the goodness and greatness of America. They have shown their true colors, and now we have their playbook. We know who they are. I have never heard so many people out there quoting Pete Townsend of The who said, "We won't get fooled again." And we're coming. We're coming back stronger than before, and in November 2024, we will re-elect Donald Trump, and we will see a burst of freedom and prosperity unlike any we have ever seen before. We're for you all the way. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, he did it once, he can do it again. And now while we're here. So, Mr. President, I started my political career right there. And I got my first paycheck, and I said, I got to get out of here. To the State House people, you're not doing it for the money. There's one thing I want to talk to you about. How many times have you heard, we like Trump policies, but we want somebody new? There are no Trump policies without Donald Trump. I was there. You know why $400 billion was given by NATO nations? Because he asked and they were afraid to say no. Every president since I've been up there has asked NATO to give more money, but they gave more money when he asked. People talk about China. You did something about China. They finally paid. Everybody's been talking about China. You made them pay. You know why Mexico said yes to you? Because you scared the hell out of them by taking on China. You know why the Abraham Accords came about? It's because you convinced the Arabs and the Israelis you were strong and you're reliable. You killed the terrorists that needed to be killed. You convinced the Arabs to work with the Israelis, and the world is a better place. We live in a dangerous world right now. The good news for the Republican Party, there are many, many talented people for years to come, but there is only one Donald Trump. And I say this sincerely. You can talk about his policies, but you could not do what he did. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Mr. President, for coming to South Carolina. You know, there are so many things we're grateful for. We're grateful for your stand on life, especially here in South Carolina. And thank you so much for moving our embassy to Jerusalem. My husband David and I had the chance to visit earlier this year on an international trade mission. It's a beautiful embassy, and the people of Israel are so proud to have it there. Thank you for coming to South Carolina.
Thank you. Thank you.
And ladies and gentlemen, Mr. President, Governor, First Lady, fellow South Carolinians, my campaign commitment, my campaign slogan when I run for public office is Joe means jobs. And so I especially appreciate Governor Henry McMaster. With the General Assembly here, in the last year, he has achieved, even by Trump standards, a lot of money, $10.3 billion of investment in South Carolina. South Carolina is the leading manufacturer and exporter of tires. South Carolina is the leading exporter of cars of any state in the union. But also, I appreciate President Donald Trump. He set records, and that is that he achieved, while he was president, reducing taxes. People got to keep their own money. How incredible. And then to have the reduction in regulations, he reduced unemployment to the lowest level ever for African Americans, for Hispanics, for Asian Americans, for women and young people. And so there's no question that I believe Donald means jobs. God bless you.
I have watched Nancy Pelosi and Democrats in Congress spend $5 trillion that has caused inflation to be the highest in my lifetime. Gas prices the highest in my lifetime. And we just fired Nancy Pelosi, and we're going to stop the spending. That's step one. But step two is to fire Joe Biden and get our president back.
Hey. Thank you all for being here. This building was started over 150 years ago, and there's a ton of history that's been through this building. But this is as big a history today as there's probably ever been in this building. Ladies and gentlemen, in 2016, I believe there were 16 people running. I can't remember all of them, but there were 16 people running, and early on, I picked this gentleman because I wanted a change agent. I had seen enough of the same old folks that learn talking points. I got all the talking points I need. I want results. I don't even know if you know this, but I was in Iowa when you spoke at the college when it was snowing out there early on in the primaries when you chose not to do the debate and go meet real people at the college. I can tell you, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to make history right here in South Carolina. When I was a little boy, Ronald Reagan ran for president. That's the first time we picked a primary, that real people got to pick the primary, not just the activists. Only one time, Newt Gingrich is the only time we didn't pick the next president nominee for the Republican Party. We did it 2.5 years ago. We did it before that. We picked the right man at the right time for the right job, and we made history picking the 45th president of the United States. Ladies and gentlemen, we're now going to pick the 47th president of the United States. Mr. President, as a 53-year-old with a 3-year-old young boy, I worry about where this country's going. And I feel blessed. I talk to the Lord almost every day, and I feel blessed that we have someone like you willing to go back and fight that swamp in Washington. We're praying for you. We're thankful you kicked it off in South Carolina. God bless.
Folks, let me tell you, the greatest honor of my life was to serve as ambassador to Switzerland and Liechtenstein for President Trump. And rest assured that every ambassador throughout the world under this president woke up with one mission: peace, security, and prosperity. He drove it in our heads from day one to the day he left that White House, and the best is yet to come.
So, thank you very much. Thanks, sir. So we'll just conclude by saying I very much appreciate it. I respect these people so much, and the state so much, and God bless you. We need the blessings from God. Our country's in big, big trouble. God bless you all, and we'll turn it around, and we'll turn it around fast. Thank you all very much. Thank you. Thank you very much.